Alright, hello everyone and welcome back to Factorio. So, let's see, where were we when we last left off? I assume we were still working on this stuff. It's still very much not perfect, but it's mostly working. But I do want to figure out how to get this fixed up slightly more. So this one's got all sorts of stuff in it, but it's spending a lot of its time just throwing that stuff away. Now, why is that? It's because occasionally there's enough in here to make one of those. Okay. Is there some way that we can just, like, temporarily make this not an issue? That would be pretty neat. Just some way of, like, making these guys output fewer iron plates and more iron chests, because that's ultimately what we need. Now, we do have a solid almost 900 legendary iron plates built up now, so it's not like it's completely failing. And this... you have a minimum payload of 100, so I don't know why you haven't brought any, but I'm sure there's some good reason for it, like... are the rocket launches not getting built? No, we have these. Although maybe we need an extra one or something. We can speed these up. So that will be extra fast now. So that's 1 per second as opposed to... this one is 0.28 per second. Can I squeeze you in there? And speed module you up so that this guy can also go a little bit faster. Missing underground belts. Alright, well, how about I just upgrade them? So I think we do have... surely we have some underground belts here. What's going on with that? Okay, we definitely have those. It just took a little bit to figure out that we'd had them. So that's good. Now both of these are outputting 1 per second. So that should be a decent improvement on our speed. And then let's also see if we can toss productivity modules in there as well. That makes it go ever so slightly faster and use fewer resources. Who knows if that's an issue, but if it is, it'll be fixed. And yeah, it looks like the launching process, we're sending up a whole lot of tungsten plates. And I don't... oh, that must be because Aquilo Quantum support just showed up. Yeah, that's what happened. Okay, that's fine. So you can pick those up. Just as many as can be delivered. Now we need to go back down to here to continue staring at these guys until things make sense. So currently, you are still just exporting things most of the time. Although you have just made a good chunk of rares there. But now you aren't doing anything because you can't get all these uncommon iron plates out. Okay. Back to staring at this then. I believe this is identical, right? So this is just to force the input. So this is identical to these ones up here. And we just need it to not switch over while it's running. So this outputs everything that's greater than 8. This outputs the highest quality item. Maybe just swapping it to lowest quality will be better, although no, I don't think that would really make any meaningful difference. It might help a little bit, but not a lot. So what we need is we need a way of remembering this output. So we're going to disconnect that and send you down to here. You're not a selector combinator, though. You are a decider combinator. All right. So let's take another stab at this. I know I've tried and failed to figure out this puzzle like 2 streams in a row now, but maybe this time. So this decider combinator needs to have a latch of some sort. So let's have that loop back to itself on green. And you need to output if anything... Actually, no. If checkmark equals 0, then you output everything. And okay, the checkmark stuff. Let's see here. So yeah, if checkmark equals 0, you output everything forwards. And then we have this one, which, yes, that should work. So then this one needs to just store what it gets. So for each greater than 0, output each with value of 1, probably. So you just store what you get. And then we need this to be and checkmark equals 1. Maybe, wait. No, because that... So that would then need to read the checkmark. Okay, let's try feeding you in a checkmark signal of 1, which will be going out to there, let's say. So this is no longer true, which means it thinks that it's working. And then in here, we are going to put in 20 of these and 10 of these, let's say. So this has a whole bunch of things stored up and it's not sending them through. So yeah, it has the iron chest requests stored up. It's not sending it through because there's a check mark, which means that this signal correspondingly has nothing. Now if I clear the check mark, then this spirals up infinitely. Okay, that's Why does that work that way? Okay, what about now if we put the check mark back in? So as soon as we put the check mark back in, this stops having anything to show. So, while it's working, then it doesn't set a recipe, and then in between steps, it sets a recipe. Maybe? So let's clear that out. And now this spirals up, which I don't love, but is probably fine. And we set that, and then that's cleared. Alright, so why is this... Oh, maybe if we just set you as input count, then, or set you as 1, then it won't spiral up infinitely. Let's see. Yes. Alright. So this might do it. So currently it thinks it's working, so it isn't setting the recipe through. Now, I think I've heard that it won't interrupt it if it's actively crafting. So hopefully that's true. Now, we'll go up to here. You have read working set already. And you just need to connect up. How did we do this? We disconnected this line here and then added these two deciders in. So let's try doing that. We get two deciders, copy and paste them both. Get the Spidertron to shift a little bit over that way. Now both of these have loopbacks like that. And then this one feeds into there. And then this one feeds into there. And that doesn't feed in from there. Alright, so this one obviously is a bit further back, so it's not going to run all the time. But let's see here. There's currently nothing. And there is stuff that can be crafted, but it isn't sending it through. So why not? Oh, because this isn't connected up. Where is this supposed to be connected up? To the quality. This connects back to there, I think. Right? Right. So now what? You're outputting Iron Chest Epic. And this isn't sending it through. Oh wait, am I dumb? Does this have to be checkmark equals 0? Does that break this? So you have that. I don't know, let's just test it. Let's just test it in here. Let's see what happens. Checkmark equals 0. So you're still scaling up, but if we set you to that, then it's fine. Okay, but now you just store that up forever. Alright, so now it doesn't clear. So previously it would clear every so often. What is different about this that had it work? So take that checkmark signal out. And then this sees checkmark equals 0, and it does that. This. Oh, well, I guess. Hang on. So checkmark equals 1 is not outputting anything. Wait. Yeah, so check mark is 0, so it isn't outputting anything. That's the problem. So you need to be like this, and input signal. But now you don't clear. Yeah, so now you don't ever clear. Because this... Okay, because the only way it's getting the check mark is through here. Now, if it were to instead have direct access to that, so the check mark. All right. So in this example, the check mark isn't coming from there. The check mark is coming from here, but still. So now you can see the check mark isn't 0, so you aren't outputting anything. Now the check mark is 0, and so you output something. And now the check mark isn't 0, you output nothing. And then you are outputting that. Now if we were to then add some additional stuff in here, so if you were to get 10 of those, so now you're outputting both of those, but yeah, now you're outputting both of those, but as soon as it starts to work and we get the checkmark signal, then you clear, and then the checkmark signal goes away and you just pick the higher. Alright, that might do the trick. So all we had to do was connect you back to there. And why is that flickering so much? Oh, I think I see. Okay, no, but this isn't right now because it's not working, but it's holding the recipe, which is the opposite of what we want. So now this is just doing uncommons forever. So now this is just doing uncommons forever, even though it can't access them. So let's disconnect that and then think some more. So we need this to... Okay, we finished steel plate productivity. Let's throw in a plastic productivity. Why not? So what we need this to do is we need this to actively update while this is happening. Hang on. What was I lost my train of thought. So this is checkmark equals 0, and only then does it pass things through. This needs to reset. So currently this is just like a memory, just like a passive memory cell type thing. We need it to reset what it's storing and send it through. So if we do this, or checkmark equals 0 instead of and, maybe. Okay, maybe we do something like this. Maybe we do something like this. I don't know. So it's currently not working, and it's showing the highest thing there is that. Now, if we clear that out, it immediately changes recipe to that for some reason. I don't know why it did that. Oh, well, it did that because the thing that it previously had was removed entirely. Now, if we put this back in, right, so it still doesn't. It still doesn't clear out its memory. Okay, wait. I think I've thought of something. Maybe if we do read recipe finished, control signal deny. And so then you need to reset your memory every time a recipe finishes. And deny is not equal to 0. All right, let's try that. So this is the one here that we are testing on, right? So you get and deny is not equal to 0. So if you have that, then what are you doing? You have 3 input signals. How do you have 3 input signals? There should only be one going through here, right? Oh no, this one is storing information. No, this one shouldn't be storing information. You're only outputting the rare signal. You're outputting 3 different things. And you are receiving 3 different things. So how... I guess you need to reset, and you only reset when it starts working. Okay, but then you... X is not equal to 0, meaning if something hasn't just finished, you store it. Okay, let's just see here. Maybe if we do this, so checkmark equals 0, and X is not equal to 0, then you pass things through. And you are technically storing, right? So maybe if we just clear that out and then send you back. Let's see here. Not equal to 0. Okay, maybe this is an OR. Maybe that's an OR. So that is now producing a whole bunch of those. And then it swaps and it produces a whole bunch of those. And it seems to be going better. Yeah, that actually seems to be working. Now this has a lot of stuff in it, so I guess we'll have to see what happens. Okay, yeah, so now this is showing an item ingredient shortage. So this never properly cleared out. So checkmark equals 0. Because we do want it to be outputting things here. But we just... let me think here. Maybe it's... We have to figure out how to make this work, because what's happening is it's just sending the signals through. It's not clearing them out properly. So if we set that to AND or check signal equals... Okay, so if it's not working... No, wait. So this... I think we need an additional case, basically. I'm just trying to figure out what that is. So currently we have if it's not working and it's just stopped, then we send it through. Maybe we have to make this an OR. So if it's not working or it's just finished. Okay, maybe we just make that this. So if it's just finished, it sends the signal through. Or if it is not working, then it sends this signal through. But if it's not working and x equals 0, so maybe this will do it. Let's see. So you are now stuck with making commons, because I guess one of these two is always going to be true. So what we need to do is we need to like give it a delay. Like we need to, how does this work? We need to clear this under these circumstances, actually. So the circumstances in which we clear it and start from scratch again are when it finishes one. So if x equals 1, then we clear it. Or if checkmark equals 0, then we clear it. So it stores it if x equals 0 and checkmark equals 0. Wait. No, and checkmark equals 1, I think, surely. So this should store the input signals if it's working. No, hang on. The other situation we need to clear is either it's just finished and it needs to reset just so that that works, or it's not working. So if it's just finished one, then x equals 1. I need to write this. I need something to write this down on. Do we have display panels here so that I can just type? Please say we have display panels on this planet. Of course we don't. It's just iron plates and electronic circuits. That should be easily craftable. I just need something to type down so that I can literally just do some Boolean algebra. So you get display panel, and you get powered, and you get to ask for iron plates and electronic circuits. Alright, so iron plates are here, electronic circuits are here, and that should give us plenty of these. We only need needing one stack is much more than we actually need. So those can then be brought down to here, and we need to figure out what we're doing here. So we need to reset if, let's see, completed equals 1. So if it has just completed a recipe, then we want to reset it to look for another recipe. Or running equals 0 and completed equals 0. So if it is stuck, so it's not doing anything, it's not doing anything and it hasn't just finished, then we want to reset. But it needs to be like a flicker of a reset. It needs to be a flicker of a reset so that it doesn't just try once and then give up. Okay, so then, conversely, we hold if completed equals 0 and running equals 1 or completed equals 1. And let's just pop parentheses around there just for clarity. So let's try putting that in. So you are completed equals 0 and running equals 1 or completed equals 1. So we need completed equals 0 and running equals 1 or, oh, this is the, right. So we can't have ors inside of ands, which means we need to do the annoying math. So it needs to be completed equals 0 and running equals 1 or completed equals 0. Oh wait, no, that's just redundant. Okay. Or completed equals 0. Is this true? Is this right? Completed equals 0 and running equals 1. Or completed equals 1. I think. Okay, I think that's right. Completed equals 0 and running equals 1 or completed equals 1. Completed equals 1. Okay, so we have this, and now, let's see, it's cleared because it's not running. Is this just redundant? Does the value of x even matter here? No, the value of x does. So if x equals 1, then this is always true. If x equals 0, check mark has to be equal to 1. I think this is just an or. I think as long as at least one of these is true, then it outputs. So now the question is, how do we get it so that it flickers, basically? Do we need to just add a clock on to it? Let's see. So we just need to check this every so often to prevent it getting stuck, is basically the short version of it. And we only need to check this if it's not outputting anything. So let's take you feed into here. Where are you getting all those from? Oh, I see. That's weird and dumb. Okay. I think this needs to be green circuit then to not pass anything through. So if everything equals 0, output a check mark of 1, maybe? And then if this just feeds into itself. That should flicker constantly. And then if you also feed into that, then... Okay, no, but that has to be on green circuit, I think. We also feed into that. Okay, have we solved it? So this goes down, and we have to wait for it to fully empty out its supply again in order to tell for certain. But I think this might be promising. So you do all that stuff. And you're about to be finished running. And now you have an item ingredient shortage. But none of these have anything, so that's expected. Okay, but this isn't working properly, right? Although you did just run, I think. So this isn't working properly because it's not clearing out these signals. So when this fails, it's supposed to clear out all the signals that it's storing. But it isn't doing that. Oh, I know. Okay, I think you need to also clear out your own check mark. Does this... So if we just do something like that, then you flicker constantly, except for when you're actually able to craft something, and then you just send it through. Alright, this doesn't feel like it's the most convenient way of doing things. I'm sort of worried about, like, how much clock cycle this takes. I mean, it's working, right? We're getting everything out, and we're not really wasting anything to any meaningful degree. At least that I can see. But the flickering is gonna be painful to look at, basically. And yeah, I don't see it outputting much other... Okay, actually, now that I look at it, it is... I just needed to look at this. It is constantly outputting junk, which is certainly not what we want, especially when it should be capable of crafting. Okay, so that's not it. You just stop then. So instead, we need you to read from here, maybe? Let's see here. Let's actually just remove you so you don't have any connections, and then build you back in. So you are going to output a... How about you output a deny signal, just to be sure. Although... doesn't matter. Check signal is also fine. So you need to be, if anything is greater than 0, output a check mark, and then you read directly from here, right? And then you can then output that check mark forwards to there. So this should get this working again. And if we're capable of doing anything, then this outputs the the check signal. I don't know if this is at all correct, but at least right now we are outputting boxes and we aren't doing any of that. Although now we have 9 uncommons built up and it's not using them. Okay, so this is not gonna work. This is not gonna work because it's just going to read this recipe forever. And also somehow these whitelists have gotten all messed up. I'm not sure how that's happened. Okay, so let's add some... Okay, so yeah, these inputs have gotten all messed up because the boxes got into their filter slots. So we're going to need to fix that somehow. But first, we need to make sure that this doesn't hold forever. We need this to output, so if anything in here is greater than 0, and we need to let's see. So this now just stores everything no matter what, because this is always going to be true. So we need to get this fixed. So this needs to be like an AND situation, right? There has to be some other component to this. And what is that? What does that other component need to be? Okay, wait. And this, maybe? So if you also read from there, so this is getting input signals. So if that is greater than 0, and what? I can't... Why is this so hard to figure out? Why can't this just be simple? So when it finishes one thing, it needs to move on to the next thing that's possible. If there isn't anything possible, then it just needs to move on to... and it just needs to wait. Okay, maybe we do if this... Let's disconnect that first. So this takes its input from here and passes things on. If... How about if everything is... So if everything is 0 and it's not possible to do anything, then we have to wait. But if there is anything possible... If there's anything possible and it's not currently running, then it needs to... I don't know. I can't figure it out. Meanwhile, this Vulcanist support here is not sending anything back to Novice. Why is that? I keep missing it because, like, you have to notice it at a specific time, otherwise it doesn't work. Okay, so now this is not sending anything through because it's not running and it hasn't just stopped. So the the clock-based thing was maybe a good idea. So let's try looking at that again. So if everything equals 0, and you're... Wait, no. We need to get both inputs in, so if this one doesn't have an output, so you output back to here, and the stupid... I don't know how those are even getting here. The plates. I don't know how the plates are even getting on this signal. But we need to remove them because they're very much in the way. So the plates are being output from this onto this one, where they just go along to here. Right, so that's not what we want. This needs to be connected in via green, I guess. So this is connected in via green to catch this output. This goes back to there to catch that output. So if everything equals 0 on green, and can this work on red? Because I think we need to do that in order to compare it. Are you going to get other random stuff through? No, okay. So if everything on green equals 0, and anything on red is greater than 0, then you're going to be true. And then if you are true, then you need to output to something which can go over here and tell this to set a new recipe, which needs to be... Okay, maybe we take that out and tell this to be a check mark. Okay, so this now sends that through to here. But the problem is now this is just going to store the check mark. It's just going to store the check mark and not be useful. So, how do we fix that? How do we fix that? Because now we have all of these guys out, because this is always true. Okay, maybe we have to clear that out, and I don't know, let's just turn this entire section off, because I think this is just entirely wrong. Take those down. So now this just works. Well, it technically doesn't work because it's not connected up correctly. So all the rest of these are doing their thing. And we need to do something to get it fixed up. Okay, so let's look again. Is there just some way of making it so that this constant loop back isn't as much of a problem? Because that would be easier than trying to actually fix it, right? That would be a lot easier than actually trying to fix it. So we could just have the loop go back in chunks. So like if we just do something like this, and then down to there. So then that will at least mean that the loop back portion only appears in groups of 4 and not any larger than that. And, okay, we need to recombine all this stuff up. So you output to there. Is that all that we needed? I think it was. Yes. Okay, so this is back to its basic functionality again. And it works, but it's not ideal. So, now we have 2,000 of that, and Vulcanist support is on its way. Oh, I see. I know what happened, obviously. I had that disabled for some reason. Oh, because of some weird loopback thing that I was doing, which isn't relevant anymore. So that's what happened. This passive provider chest here was not enabled, which means that it didn't actually get detected to send things over in time. Okay, that's fine. So now that's all set up. So another problem we had was over here on Aquilo, where we need rocket silos, and I could have sworn that we had the ability to make some. Let's see here. Are any of you guys storing motors? What about Aquilo support? Do you have motors on you? Yes, you do. So let's drop those down. And what else did this need? It needed more concrete and it needed steel. So we can toss the steel in there. And Aquilo support, do you have any of those? Got a whole bunch more of that stuff. And what about the concrete? Where is concrete for this? We are just 100 or so short. So are one of you guys supposed to be carrying concrete? No. What about you? You have 1,000 concrete requested, but you don't have any on you, so you're gonna have to go back to Novice to pick that up so we can get that cleared out. And then in the interest of clearing things out, let's dismantle this so that we don't have that request for quality modules. And I've just also realized that this, if that's how we're doing it, we need you to also be filtered for rare quality. Okay, then we need to rebuild this in such a way that doesn't cause any problems. Okay, so now any rare quality plates which somehow end up back here shouldn't become an issue. You should just store them. Okay, so now Vulcanist support is making its way back again, and it's going to pick those up. Let's add that same request for legendary quality iron plates onto each of these guys, just so that they move a little bit faster. Otherwise it could take quite a while. So 1,000 of those, but as long as there's at least 100. Oh, and you need to grab them from Vulcanus. You need to grab them from Vulcanus, and you already had that set. Okay, so Vulcanus support 1 is here, and it's registering legendary quality iron plates as on the way. Very nice. So let's just pop down here to see that, yep, drones have come and picked all those guys up. And if we zoom up this way, we are indeed loading up a rocket. Although the minimum payload is a bit of an issue because it means that we're going to have to launch a lot more rockets to get it up there, because they aren't going to wait for a full rocket even when they could manage it. It's a bit annoying. Okay, so then the next rocket is up. And hopefully... I don't know why. All these drones are definitely flying here and dropping things off, but they're not showing up. I hope they aren't just getting deposited into the void. Or no, they might have been going down here. Alright, either way is fine. So this should help us back on Novice get a whole bunch of iron plate stuff set up. Now let's look at these things. So we only have 4 of those. Has the iron plate supply just completely folded? What's going on here? They're all just waiting at stops. And a whole bunch of them are just waiting up here. Oh, I see what's happening. So these ones are supposed to be the inputs, but we need to split all of these across all of the outputs. So that's going to be a bit convoluted. So we need to take our 4 of these guys up, and we need to combine them with each other. And then combine you up to there. And then combine them up one more time. And let's still have these direct routes in where possible. This one's going to have to move slightly, just so that belt speed limitations don't completely break this entire thing. But then these all split up, and then they split back to 4 and come down this way. We're going to have to move the drone port a little bit. So then this one needs to go down that way. This one needs to go down this way. No idea what that belt is for. And then this one needs to come along and connect down this way somehow. Alright, everything about this is tremendously confusing, but hopefully that does it. And then let's upgrade all of those belts. And hopefully that will get these guys functional again. Okay, so that's all going. And now we have more iron going through. And that should hopefully, theoretically, fill up the remaining bit. And then hopefully this belt here wasn't anything important. Knowing my luck, it probably was critical, but I guess we'll figure that out when something else breaks. For now, at least, we have this iron setup running again. So there we go. Now we have iron back down here, and that should get things running again. We have 4 legendary beacons. It's not ideal at all. Alright, so now that can go again, and our Vulcanist support, you should be the one. Yes, you've got 1,076 legendary iron plates on you. You're bringing those back to novice, and hopefully that can stay pretty stable like so. So this is still going up, and that's all good. So this, yeah, I guess this just doesn't work in a way which would ever result in that. So that's fine. That would ever result in legendary quality getting up here, I think, because this is just like the trash output. Anything that were already legendary quality would have gotten recycled again, so this is probably not necessary. We'll keep it just in case, though. Just in case something weird happens. Okay, and then in the meantime, do we just give up on this whole super smart thing? Let's see. If we wanted to... So the thing is that this is a lot more efficient in terms of like the number of modules that we need to use for it. Like if we weren't doing it this way, we would need like one of these for epic quality, one of these for rare, one of these for uncommon, and then we would only have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 of them for the regular commons. Although with how low throughput these are working, I don't even know if that's like necessarily helping at all. So I could just like dedicate the first couple of these to only the commons, and then have these last couple be adaptive ones. Yeah, I'm very much thinking about just calling this super smart system just a bad idea. We spent way too much time working on it for the amount of benefit that it gives, I think. So yeah, as much as I would love to figure this out and get it fixed, I really want to figure this out, though, is the thing. Like, I really, really want to solve this puzzle. But I think that might... I think it's probably just a mistake at this point. So, let's see here. How do we do this? How do we do this then? We just need to make a whole bunch of these iron chests, and just have these be different, just dedicated machines. I mean, it'll be a whole lot simpler, right? But then that poses a problem of like the ratios of how many of them. No, I really, really want to solve this, and like, what's the point of playing the game if not to solve the puzzle that you want to solve? So let's continue thinking. So I believe what we've established is that the reasons these guys reset too frequently is because they're always going to pick the highest quality output that they can. So, what if we read... We just need to figure out some way of, like, determining what recipe they're currently doing and working that way into this loop, so that they'll select either the highest quality one or the one they're currently working on, whichever. So they'll work on whichever one they're currently working on, unless there isn't a recipe in there currently, or they're not currently working on something, and then they will just work on the highest quality. Okay, so let's get this figured out. So what we need to do is figure out if it is actively working on something. So we need to obviously connect you up. So you are going to be read ingredients, read working, I guess. And let's see. So if read working, you're going to output to the checkmark signal. Read ingredients is going to do what it does, right? And then we need to take that and no, wait, because you need to read contents for other reasons. So if we just pop read ingredients onto there, that will break it, so we can't do that. Okay, is there any way of getting just the contents out of this and not sending the... No, I don't think so. I don't think this is possible. I think we have to either just live with this version or figure out the complicated version that I've been trying to figure out, where it updates like whenever it has to. Okay, so let's get the clock in. So we have clock is greater than... How does this work? We have like clock is less than 100, output clock with a value of 1, and then if we loop you back into yourself... No, wait, is it input count? How did this work? Oh, right, it was... You also need a fresh supply of constant combinator. So you have clock equals 1, feeds that in. So now you count up to 100 and then drop down to 0. So we need you to govern this, basically. So what we can do is set this clock. We can set the clock to finish cycling, like in how long it takes for one of these recipes to finish, which is 2 per second, so presumably every half a second, probably. So, I don't know, if we do something like this, and then we read forwards there, so if clock equals 1, this should flicker every half a second, maybe, assuming I have the frame rate right, which, I don't know, it probably runs at 60 frames per second. So this should cycle every half a second. This should flicker and give us a check mark. So then what we need to do is have this up. So this has its signal output, and then you would then take if check mark equals 1. No, so if check mark equals 1, then you output... Wait, no, this would be if check mark equals 0, then you output... each, maybe? No. If check mark equals 0, then you output everything with a value of 1. And you would store that and read from there. So then this would then also read from here. So this, I mean, it seems to be working in that it's storing the value and then resetting it every so often. Okay, so I guess technically we don't need the checkmark intermediary. We can just do this all in here. So you feed to there, and you say if clock does not equal 1, then you store your stuff. Okay, and that certainly does not seem to be working. That certainly does not seem to be working. What is the clock doing here? Maybe we have to set you to 30? No, so you aren't resetting. We can tell you're not resetting because the check mark is still in there sometimes. Okay, maybe this needs to just send it through on red. Oh, and maybe that OR needs to not exist. So if the clock is not equal to 1, which currently it isn't because it's 0, then it outputs all that stuff. So now, we connect you up. Then this occasionally stops being true, which causes it to reset its signals. And so then, so this stores that. I don't know how it's getting the rest of that. Where's this being fed from? Where is this getting its... Okay, it's getting its stuff from the red circuit. So if we chop that down, make you the green circuit, then you should be just the potential output. Okay. So I think we have this potentially worked out. So we just need the one clock for the entire row, right? So if we then disconnect you and connect you back, then you should... Okay, let's give you a bit more time just to be sure. Let's give you 60 seconds each. And you now mostly do that. Are you at all better than the rest of these? Because you're still outputting junk constantly. And we're still somehow getting iron plate signals across into this whole system, which I don't understand how any of those are getting there. I also don't know where the check mark signal is coming from either. So you I think don't need to read working at all. I think none of these guys care about that. So that's gone. Now you are capable of doing that. Okay, what we need to do is we need to just like have a comparison between the two of these. So, because it's hard to tell whether this new system is actually any better. So we're just going to yoink you, pop you there, and we are going to yoink you. Grab some unintended stuff, but that's fine. Pop you down there. So now we just need to do some science here. So all we need to do is take all of those guys out, and these are just going to feed into boxes. That box needs to be up there. That box needs to be up there. So these just feed directly into boxes. And then we need to make sure that they get the same amount of input. So in order to make sure that that's the case, we will be splitting them from a single belt, like so. So they'll both receive the same amount of input and then have their outputs. Okay, so now we just need to actually successfully yoink some of this input out. So let's bring this over to here and pull it down. Let's see, make sure this is successfully flickering. Okay, so now this goes through, and these both get all the input they could ever want, and then they just have to produce boxes, and we will see which one is more efficient by how many boxes are in here compared to how many plates are in there. So let's just give this a second. And let's see here. It's been running for a while. So we've got 17, 8, 1, and 1. 11, 9, 2, and 2. So this one seems to be doing slightly better. 40, 20, and 2, 46, 20. Yeah, so I think this is slightly better, but it's very marginal. It's very marginal indeed. So we need further improvements, basically, is what that's telling me. Let's just chop that down. And I'll let all of this run a little bit more. Okay, so now this system is stopped. This system is still going because it just had a little bit longer on the belts. But yeah, it looks like this... Yeah, it actually looks like there isn't any meaningful difference between the two. Okay, so that's a bit of a shame. So what we need to do then is... I like this clock idea. I like the clock idea. I just feel like we need to refine it a little bit more. So let's see here. Instead of just swapping out every clock cycle, what we need to do is we need to check if it's running. Okay, so that and check mark equals 0. No, wait. So the conditions here are what happens if it resets. So we want it to reset if... Yeah, actually this is correct, right? We want it to reset if the clock is 1 and it's not actively working. Okay. So if we just make that one simple fix, and then we are going to clear this old test out, and all that stuff goes away. And then we need to actually filter out to make sure the legendary qualities don't get in here. Filter legendary qualities to the right, where they go into a box. So we do that, and then we need to clear out this stuff on the belts, and then Connect them back up. Okay. So, new test can go in. I guess we shouldn't be looking at the rarities because these ones have modules and these ones don't. So let's actually just remove all of these demands for modules just to control for that. So these guys are going to send all the stuff through. And it's once again about the same. Oh wait, did I never give this access to the checkmark signal? Yeah, I never gave that access to the checkmark signal. So that's obviously not going to do anything then. So we need to dismantle, reset our experiment, try again once we fix the problem. Alright, so all of that gets taken away, and apparently it's just getting brought to here. Do we have storage chests in this area? Okay, we apparently have a couple. Have a couple storage chests, but not many. So we need to clear all this stuff out of the Spidertron's inventory, because it definitely doesn't want to be carrying these. And let's save the trouble by inequality 0. And iron plates, inequality 0. So Spidertron should never store any of those things. Okay, so you need to gain access back to that so that you can know when the check mark is happening. And that's also going to give you some information about its contents, which is unfortunate, but whatever. Let's see if this works now. So this is now running. Every so often it swaps. Just have to give it enough time to see how well the experiment works. And again, ideally there should be less of these than here. And no, instead there's... Okay, wait, it's hard to tell. It looks like the numbers of the different types are slightly different. But it looks like it might be marginally better. Yeah, again, this is technically better, but not by a meaningful amount. So let's chop that out again. And just leave this. So, the problem with this cycle system is... What? What is the problem with this? Why is it still outputting so much stuff? I don't understand the problem here. I do not understand why. So it's 352171. This is 322171. That's... I mean, it's basically just margin of error, right? Like, there's going to be a little bit of variability there. So who can say? So we need to just continue working on this. So the loop here loops every 60 frames, which should be once a second. And it should take from here and do all that. Yeah, I don't know. I don't think we've made any meaningful difference by doing that upgrade. So I think we just have to give up with it. There has to be some better way of doing this, but I don't know what it is. I've tried a bunch of times. I think I'm just gonna have to Google it. I want to have this system, but ultimately just Googling it will be easier, I think, at this point, than constantly bashing my head against the wall over and over and over again. Alright, so this is still fine. I mean, it's not tremendously efficient, but it works well enough, I guess. So, we can, again, we can make this more efficient just by creating designated spots for the tier 1s to go to. And that might be what we have to do. In the meantime, Aquilo's support is back here over Novice. Not getting any concrete. Oh, I assume all of our concrete production is going into quality, and that's what's happening. Let's see, where was our quality concrete setup? It was somewhere in this general vicinity, right? Yeah, so we have a whole bunch of concrete delivering over here at any given time. Okay, so what we need to do is connect you up, enable, disable, if, where's concrete? It's going to be under logistics. If concrete is greater than 1,000, then you can be enabled. So now you should be disabled by control behavior, so the amount of stuff getting delivered here should slow down. And that'll let us build up something of a stockpile of concrete, which hopefully we can send up to Aquilo support. So yes, now we have 300 concrete on the way, and that can now just build up. And this won't cause a difference in the long term, I don't think, unless our concrete storage isn't good enough. Actually, genuinely, where do we make concrete? Like, where does that come from? I have no idea. This is why designs like this are terrible. Alright. If I were a concrete production factory, where would I be? I mean, the stone is here, right? And this goes... Okay, here we are. Yes. So we have these guys. They stack up to 100. So we do have enough storage here to be able to do all this properly. So that's good. And then we're mostly just limited by the stone production, it looks like. This stuff is real slow. And actually the raw stone input is a bit of a problem. You can upgrade that belt to make it a little bit better. So that should get a little bit more stone flowing through these guys. And that should help a little bit. And then this stone comes along this whole giant belt. Is there anywhere on here where we absolutely rely on this being a one-sided belt? No, so we should be able to go back here. Oh, here's another giant line of stone production. That's fun. Oh, this isn't meant to be a one-sided belt. There's just not a train here. Where's the train? You're waiting over here. Okay, you're getting filled up. That'll happen eventually. So that isn't an issue then. At least not a serious issue. So we have a whole bunch of plastic backlog. Let's increase that so that we can get a little bit more legendary coal backlog, since that's not a limiting factor currently. Now, did those legendary iron plates ever show up? We have 6 of these, so probably. I wish I knew where they all wound up. they all go in here? No, we still only have 4 of those. How about here? We have 200 of those and 200 of those, so I guess this might be where a lot of them wound up. Legendary iron plates, where are you? You haven't got any. You've got a couple. So that's fine. And then this is just doing its thing. Okay, and then we just need to redo that thing we did earlier, where we are going to get you request iron chests of any quality. Oh, right, so we can only do, so that's how that works. Very annoying. I wish there could just be like in each system, but apparently not. So you request iron chests 1, 2, 3, and 4, and 5. So these should all get delivered. Actually, quality ones we don't need to deliver because those, I think, are just being crafted somewhere else. We don't want to mess with our logistic storage supply of those. So then we get a power pole in there, and we can get all this stuff filtered back into the system. And let's clear those iron plates out of that iron chest so that they don't get stuck. Okay, so this is basically all set up now. Now, at some point, are any of these guys delivering quality? No. Okay, so transport platform has a whole bunch more quality modules. So let's get you moving back to Vulcanus. That way we can construct a whole lot more of this stuff. And we can just scale that up a whole lot till it works. And if we are scaling this up, I don't know if this system here is like at all reasonable for larger scales, so we might just have to give up and go back to the boring system. I want to figure this out, but I have not seen like any progress at all on it so far. So I think we might have to throw in the towel. So we have this blueprinted, right? Somewhere in here. Yeah, I think something like that is one of the right blueprints. So then let's, I guess, just give up on this and go back to the boring method, because it's just more efficient. I keep wanting to give up on this and also wanting to not give up on this. This is just a lot more, it's almost an elegant solution, you know? I wonder if we can come up with an even more convoluted system. So, hear me out here. We've got a box, right? And this box is going to store all of the non-commons, right? So we have a bunch of these guys that are just designated to making common chests. And then, no, wait, that wouldn't make sense. Okay, so we have, let me, I'm trying to like come up with it so that it works along the entire row instead of just on one, and basically we'll like reconfigure to make sure we have enough assemblers of each type. That seems more complicated, but it wouldn't require the assemblers swapping regularly. They would only have to swap like when something unusual happened. so it might wind up being easier. Okay, so we have a belt. We want this to all be reading off of a belt, right? So that it doesn't break things. Let me think here. So if we read off of a belt, we get better throughput and we don't have to feed stuff through a box. But we have a lot less storage. I guess we could just make it a long freaking belt. Like, I mean, it's obviously less efficient space-wise, but space isn't a problem. If we were to do something like this, right, then this could store a whole bunch of items, right? Or even like a giant loop of some sort. So, yeah, so what I'm thinking is like this loops back, and then we need it to connect in. So we have something like this, right? And then that connects us in. And obviously this would be input priority left. So we would have fresh items go in here, and then they would circle around in this loop. And then we would know how many of those items we had. And then we could branch them off. Actually, does this make sense? No, I don't think the loop here makes sense. I think just having a long storage belt should be enough. So we have this, and then it just sort of then just moves along to do normal belt stuff. And then each of these has, so we would have these, right? And they would have their main output there, and they would have their junk output up there, and then the main output, let's get that in properly, get that cliff out of the way, would go like that. The junk output would be prepared to loop back into the beginning here, but hopefully we wouldn't be using the junk output much. So now what we need to do is we need to set it up so that, let's see, how does this work? We need to set it up so that if anything on this belt, oh, why is my brain not working? So we have this, right? And then this would loop back around past this point, past the machines. It loops back around, not before the machines, I think. And then obviously this needs to feed in somehow. So something like this. So if anything gets past the machines, then we count it. And if the count gets too high, then if the count of one item gets too high, then we swap that item down. Okay, this might cook, actually, I think. So what we're doing here is we have a decider combinator here, and you are going to read the belt. You're going to be read belt contents pulse, and you are going to be anything greater than 0 output. Oh wait, no, this should be each greater than 0. You output each with a value of 1. So, this then, what, it stores itself, right? So this counts up how many items get passed, and then we have another one here which reads that, and if each is greater than... Okay, so we need to... The complicated part is going to be like having each of the machines... deciding which machine to flip is going to be the hard part of this system. So we could just have it so that there's like certain dedicated machines which swap around, and I mean technically we could have it so all the machines swap around. That seems like a bad idea. So let's see here. Okay, so what if we also account for the items which are leaving through getting crafted up into something. So we put bulk inserters there, and then we connect you up somehow. So you get to read hand contents pulse, and we would subtract those. So those would actually be going to an arithmetic combinator, I think. So, yeah, actually I think we just need a couple arithmetic combinators for this. So, you feed that, you feed that. This one multiplies by -1 for each, and outputs that to each. Then this one, what do? You just need to immediately start counting everything through here, right? So you go each +1, output each. Let's see here. I don't know if this will actually work the way I want it to. So we should test that. So let's get some power in here and connect it up. Okay, now we want to request our chest, and we specifically want that to be unpowered for this test. And so then we're going to get in 100 iron plates. So we want that to fill up with 100 items. There we go. And now we cut the request and output those 100 iron plates into here. So this is not working. Oh, and also they're gonna loop back pretty soon. So this winds up... You were belt content pulse. Okay, so this is just going up. This is just going up forever. Does this not need to be +1? Does this just need to be +0? I think it might just need to be +0. You do each +0 output to each. Okay, now we connect that up. Send those through. And I forgot to connect the circuit up to anything useful. Okay, so we connect you up, send the wave of plates through, and then dismantle it again. So now you don't store anything. because of course you don't, because this isn't connected up to itself. Okay, try this again. So this goes through, and that shows 98, which is not 100. We might have lost 2 somewhere. It's entirely possible. Let's unclear you, put that back in, and try this again. See if you always show exactly 98, or if there's some sort of problem here. Okay, you show exactly 98 again. And now, let's just gather these back up, throw them back into this chest, and see if there's actually exactly 98 of them. Yes, there are. Alright, so that is an exactly accurate count of how many items pass through here. Now, this... Okay, actually we need that one to also count them up first. And then we multiply you by -1. Each times -1. Output each. And then we power you up. Okay. So now here we have a positive value count of everything that gets past the line of assemblers. Here we have a negative valued count of everything that goes into the line of assemblers. So let's actually test that. Let's get you to be slower so that you don't have problems with that. But we still want you connected up to that with read hand contents pulse. And then we send all that stuff through. Oh, and I forgot that this is wrong. So first we count that down. And actually, wait. We don't want to be reading this after, right? We need to be reading this as they get introduced. So that's fine. We can fix that later when we're actually doing this. But for now, we want to make sure that this works properly. So let's get that set up. And this goes in. And this is going to pick items up and show -40. That shows 60, which somehow we've gotten up to 100 again. Not sure how that works. So now we're obviously going to be scaling up past 100 because this is just looping around and around. But the goal is basically we detect everything that gets put into this system and everything that gets put out of this system. So then, actually, is that convolute? We could just do a belt. We could just do an all belts hold situation. So that could work for telling us everything that's in the system. However, it also might not. I feel like there's going to be some problem with that. I don't know what. So this is correctly showing -98. That's how many iron plates went out here. So that's good. So if we do just a hold all belts on this, that'll show us how many are in the entire system at any given time. But no, because what I actually care about isn't the total number of items in the system, it's how many are getting past the assemblers, right? So what I want to do is I want to see, like, oh, we have epics getting past the assemblers, set one of the assemblers to epics, right? That's what we want to be doing here, not anything else. I don't care if there's a whole lot of commons in this system, as long as they're all getting used up. So, okay, so we have this. This counts up how many items get past the assemblers. So, what we need actually is we don't need this. We just need the one count, right? How many items get past the assemblers? And then we need to clear it sometimes. We need to... Once it gets up past a certain threshold, then we need to set a new machine onto that type of item and reset this. So let's work on the resetting part next. So we need to get another 100 in here, which means letting this build up a bit. There we go. Items are in. That's set down. And off we go. And you need to not do that, please. Alright, so a whole bunch of items go through, right? And now we've got this count of like 84 items, right? So if we want to reset this count, then we would need another one here, which I guess we would need a decider combinator as well to make sure we don't just constantly reset the count whenever it feels like it. So we have a decider combinator followed by you. So you would feed forwards to there, you would feed around to there, and you would loop back into there. And so you would be input times -1, each times -1, outputs each. So then this decider combinator would take the inputs through, and inputs greater than 100. So each greater than 100 outputs each with its input count. So currently this doesn't reset, but if we were to then set this to a lower threshold to simulate it being crossed, then this now shows -84. That's not what we want. Let's see here. Maybe it's each and each greater than 0. No, that's definitely not right. That's just redundant. Okay, so this is currently -84 for some reason. Not sure how that's happened. Okay, what if you're just times 0? So you need to get cleared again. So if you're just times 0, what happens? That shouldn't do anything, right? Alright, so it counts up to 50, and yeah, it just keeps counting. Okay, so let's clear you. And then have you each... I feel like times -1 should be the correct thing here. And maybe... Okay, wait, maybe you need to be plus each green. Maybe if we do that, then this connects to there, right? So that's connected in on green. And now, if we send you through, we just want this to loop up to 50 and then reset. No, that doesn't work either. All right, let's think if we can just do this with the hold all belts system. Because that seems like that would be easier, right? Okay, so what I could do is, so we have a decider combinator in here, and you are going to be storing that up. Then this is going to be hold all belts, right? So this knows about everything past the machines is what it can know about. And so it will know if a whole lot of stuff is getting through, because these numbers will be high up. So if each greater than 30, maybe, we want relatively few items to be looped back through, so do that. Then you output those forwards. Okay, so this should tell us which rarities of ingredients we're not using enough of. And now we need to do the hard part, which I still don't even know if it is possible, which is we need to count how many machines are working on that rarity and then increase one. So here we have like one of each, right? So one common, one uncommon, one rare. So we have this, and what we need to do is take this signal out, and if okay, so what we need to do is we need to take the signal out, and we need to like sequentially read these back. So we need them to be like default all commons, and then when we need uncommons, we add those on, and then when we add rares, we need to like push the uncommons to the left, and then when we need epics, we need to push the rares and the uncommons to the left. This is gonna be way more complicated than just doing an ordinary setup. So, okay, what I can do is we probably only need like 1 or 2 of the higher rarity ones. So, okay, what I think we're going to do is we're going to have like a line of common assembly machines, because those are going to be the ones we need the most of. And then past that point, we can just change the... No, because we don't want to change the entire row. Well, we can do a latch, actually. A latch would make it relatively efficient. So we just say, like, once you're above 1,000... Once you're above, I don't know, 100, maybe 200 rares, then you swap over to making rares until you're done. And then once you're above like 200 uncommons, then you swap over to making uncommons, and then you're done. So maybe that works, although how different is that even from this system up here? I don't know. So I guess we can just like brute force work. So instead of just doing eaches and everything, we can just explicitly deal with the different types of things that we're building here. That's an option. So if we have, instead of you counting that, actually, wait, so you get all of those stored in, right? And then you output everything greater than 30. So that's actually fine. We can start with that. Then we need a decider for uncommons, a decider for rares, a decider for epics, and that should be fine, I think. So then you obviously connect up to each. So you are going to be uncommons. So if uncommon iron plates are greater than 500, maybe? I don't know what the numbers are going to have to be like. We'll figure out what the numbers are going to wind up looking like later. Then, actually, is this even... I'm just trying to think of like how this is going to line up in terms of everything on the belts all working properly, and I don't know if this is going to do what I want it to do. So let's check back on Novice. We are up to 16, so these are producing again. So that's good. I mean, we have our supply of legendary iron plates from there. I'm just trying to come up with like a smart way of doing it, as opposed to just brute forcing it with extra machines that we don't necessarily need to be running all the time. So, how is this going to work? How is this gonna work? We need to think. I've been thinking this whole time, and I'm definitely starting to get tired. So if we have this, right? So this checks if uncommons are greater than 500 or uncommons are greater than 20 and check mark equals 1. Then you output check mark of 1 and uncommon iron, actually just uncommon iron chest probably. This is as good a spot as any to make that swap up. So then you do that, and we can just paste that down to here and then swap the rarities up. And so we just do that, and then this is epic. So these all go in like so. So now we have 3 latches. One is true for each of the 3 higher qualities that I'm not aiming towards taking out. And actually, let's just get the commons in here. Why not? That'll be fun. So we paste that across, and these guys get set to normal qualities, normal qualities, normal qualities. And they all need to loop back into themselves like this, and they need to not accidentally cross-contaminate their check marks. Okay, so we have that. That's all looping back. Then we need these to go forwards into another decider combinator. So this one needs to be if iron chest is greater than... How do you just compare... Oh, a selector combinator maybe? Yeah, I think a selector combinator here is what we need. So we get a selector combinator. You are going to be quality transfer, right? So select from signal, picks highest quality of found signals. So you are going to select from signal iron chest and output iron chest as the target signal. So these all go forwards into this. And so this tells us what we need to be producing. This tells us what we have too much of. And then we need to somehow convert this into converting these into the right recipe. So each one of these, let's see here. How does this work? I think it is just like we have a couple baseline ones and then set these up for the excess. Yeah, it should work, I think. I don't know. Let's figure that out. So we have. I have no idea how to even test this. Is the problem? Like with this setup up here, it's been relatively straightforward. But for this one, I don't know how we're gonna do it. So we have these three, right? And they're all gonna get powered. And they're all going to be set recipe. So let's combine those up. Set recipe. And paste that across. So each of these set their recipe. And then they need to take in this setting, right? So if we just do that, that should connect them all up. Although we could control them more directly. Okay, how about we take out the selector combinator? We don't have that, and we have each of these actually not connected up to each other, but they each get their own decider combinators. So let's. I mean, this is obviously isn't going to be the final setup exactly. But so each of these feeds from their decider combinators to set their recipe. Now these combinators, actually maybe they need a selector. Maybe they need a selector as well. So each of these, maybe they each. Maybe like each one turns on at a higher value of the given item. So no, that doesn't work because we have too many things. If this were just two quality levels, it would be straightforwards. I wonder then. That's an interesting thought. So if we had just two quality levels, we could say, this one turns on when there are 100 remaining. This one turns on when there's 150 of them. This one turns on when there's 200 of them. So that, like, as the amount of excess increases, that happens. But I don't know if that's a good idea or not. I don't know. I'm just thinking myself in circles here, and like I don't think I'm getting anywhere closer to an actually practical setup. So we do have this going, and it looks like blue circuits are the main limiting factor here, and that's limited by this. So we do have like 200 spare blue circuits up here, which we could send in. We could send those in to generate a whole bunch of these guys. I don't know if that's what we want. So we do want to get a whole bunch of green circuits as well. So yeah, I don't know. I don't know what we're doing here. I keep trying to come up with this clever idea, and like it's too interesting for me to give up on it and yet too difficult for me to actually make progress. So I'm just sort of stuck in a time loop, basically. So if there's two things, then we have them set like from the edges, and it's fine. With 4 rarities that we care about crafting, we could just split this into 2 groups. So we could do like the commons and uncommons in one row, and then the rares and epics in a second. I guess that's still better, but it's not ideal though. It's not what I want. Okay, let me think here. Is there some way of getting this to like cycle down one at a time? No, I don't think so. Alright. How do we do this? How do we do this? I think we just have... this is so frustrating. I'm so close to figuring it out, and yet making no progress, like getting that last 10% towards completing any of the solutions I've thought of. Like, if we could have this system and to have it just not reject so much stuff, then that would be great. If we could have this system and have it work properly, that would be great. Okay, let's think. Maybe there's some way of doing the filters on the inputs. Okay. No, I'm not thinking of anything for that either. I was thinking of like, if there's some way we can use the fact that these guys have their internal storages to decide which ones need to just be locked in as something. And okay, here's a thought. Okay, wait. I might have just thought of something. If iron plates get past an individual machine on the belt, then that belt needs... So the plates are coming in through here, right? So if we look here, and there's common iron plates here, that means that this one needs to be common in order to deal with those. If we look here, and there's common iron plates here, this one needs to be common in order to deal with those. And then, if we look here, and there are no commons, but there are uncommons, this one needs to be uncommon to deal with those. Okay, wait, that might be something. Let me think. How we need to store the information somehow. And okay, let's have then a memory storage thing here. So you go each greater than 0, output each with a value of 1. So you would read from there, and if at any point an iron plate got past this, then it'll get stored in here, and then we would set this to the... No, wait, we could use selector combinators with that one setup, right? So this would get set, each of these would then get set to the highest tier plate which has ever gone past them through the selector combinator, right? So we have one of these set to quality transfer. And so these would get set to the highest quality plate whichever gets past them. And that would just stay there. And then, let's see though, what we need for this is some way of like giving the previous ones time to set up when they get changed. So when this changes, we need to like give, I don't know, 60 seconds maybe before this one changes. And then maybe we need to like reset them every so often just to be sure that nothing weird happens. So the specific wiring would be something like this, right? So you are set recipe. You read everything, I guess pulse is fine, everything that goes here. Then you would do read from plates, output to chests, which we would need a input for, but that's just a constant combinator in here, which feeds into you a chest signal of 1, so that you have that. So you would then be the highest quality item whichever goes past here, right? So this goes through and sets that permanently-ish to those. And then, if we were to then, I'm pretty sure I have some of these lying around, right? If we were to bring some of these guys in, and just wait for those to be delivered, it's taking a while. It is taking a while for that delivery. It does say there's 100 on the way. Okay, it looks like that might be them stopping to charge. Maybe? Are they all like getting stuck in this loop, or is that something else? Okay, yeah, no, here they are. So then that comes through. Now this gets set permanently to uncommon chests. And this stores both of those. Now, we need each of these. Okay, yeah, no, you need to stop delivering those in because we don't need them anymore. So now, we just need each of these to be set up like that. And then theoretically, like all of the epic quality iron plates would get sucked up by this one, and so then only rares would get to here, and then only uncommons would get to here, and then only commons would get to there. So this, in theory, would work. However, it could... So if rares occasionally... If the higher tier ones occasionally sneak past, for whatever reason, just because of weird timing or whatever, then we could eventually run into a situation where we don't have enough of the lower tier items, which would be bad. So, in order to prevent that, I mean, we just need to have enough machines to handle everything. But even then, like, weird situations might happen over and over again. And if that is the case, then what do we do? Okay, maybe we have just buffer chests here that store a little bit of everything. And they don't even need to be attached to this, although maybe they should be. No, wait. So the problem is the first epic quality iron plate that goes through, right? It's going to pass through all of these guys And so actually, no, that's easy to fix, right? So if this reads from here just before each machine, and you are still just read build contents pulse. So if you read from just before each machine, then that should work. And then what do we need to do? So we need to have enough machines to handle everything. We might want some way of resetting it every so often. But I think the problem with this is that we can't test it in a vacuum. We have to just, like, hook it up to an actual supply and see what happens. So let's get this built up. So first of all, we need to get some space there, because we're going to need a lot of these machines. And okay, we're also going to need to make sure that this fits in the zone, right? It shouldn't be a problem. So, because this is relatively few machines compared to what I've been doing. So you are... I should have copy-pasted the settings before I deleted it. You are select from that, and output to that. Select from signal. Then this feeds to that. This decider combinator, I forgot what it did. What did it do? Oh, right, this is just a memory thing. So you are each greater than 0, output each value of 1. So you remember your stuff, and you feed your output of everything you've ever remembered into there. Then you receive your information from that, which is set to read belt contents pulse. And then this outputs its final result to there. So we have this set up. Now let's copy paste you to all of these guys. And let's just get a lot of them. And these aren't going to be connected up to quality modules at the moment, because I just want to test to see if it works. And if it does, obviously we just attach the quality modules up and call it a success. Okay, so we have this, and then we have this. So our inputs go here. We don't need this whole convoluted loop thing anymore. Although we might want... Do we have, like, access to super slow belts here? Can we just, like... Because I don't want this to be overwhelming for our setup. I want us to definitely have enough machines for everything. So let's just, like, yoink a couple of the slowest possible belt to connect this in. Okay. So then we have this, and we do need the loop around just in case something weird happens. I guess we might not need it, but we should probably have it. So then our outputs are going to go over there for testing, and we need to configure these so that we don't get cross-contamination. So then our excess goes up there, and again, just for testing, we're going to be combining it up and bringing it over this way. So we have that. Let's make those bulk inserters just to be sure. Alright, so we should get a slow drip feed of iron plates in here once we connect this up. And hopefully that's what happens. The Spidertron wasn't close enough to call dibs on that placement. Let's move it closer and pop it in. Okay, so these go through. And then they go slowly. And, I mean, it's doing something, maybe. Except all 4 of these have gotten set to epics, which is definitely wrong. And, yeah, so none of these... Okay, so basically we don't have enough distance between them, maybe? So I wish I could see how exactly that happened. Because, I mean, it's kind of working. However, it's kind of working, but the bulk inserters aren't fast enough, maybe? Okay, so we need to connect a resetter up to these. And I believe that's just... And... check... Okay, let's just do and clock equals 0. That's on these ones, right? So, we set all those. So now most of these aren't resetting, so we need to get our clock in. So, we have this set up, and you... Actually, does this need to be clock is not equal to 0? I think technically it has to be... It resets when clock is... I think that is the correct setup. So we paste this across, and then we get our clock loop over here. So we get clock is less than 120 would be like 2 seconds, so like this should be like 20 seconds. Maybe that's fine. Your output clock, you loop into yourself, and you read from this, and you get powered. So, oh, you need to be input count, right? Not 1. Okay, so this should then loop around, and we need to feed it into all of these, and that needs to... We need to make sure that we're not cross-contaminating. I think green works for this. Wait, maybe? Maybe not? I don't know, actually. How do we connect this in without breaking things? So you... Okay, let's just try doing it like this. Yeah, so this is cross-contaminating. Definitely. So these have all been set to legendary because of that. Which means that that's no good. Okay, so this, I think if we just set that to be input from the red side, right? Because that's you, so you shouldn't be doing anything from there. And then if we paste that across, then hopefully that does it. And okay, so now that cycle is happening. Let's queue up a random research. And this is cycling. So let's see what happens now. So now these are constantly resetting. So why is that? Why are they now constantly resetting? So this is not storing anything. Oh, I see why. Okay, I understand now. So this does need to be set like that. However, this cross connection needs to be red, I think. Let's see. So let's take that out real quick. And so at least we stopped it from running, but now it's just jammed entirely, which is worse. Okay, so this is our loop. I believe we need to disconnect these guys on green and connect them on red, maybe? We might also just not have enough unique signal colors for this. So this connection goes across, and then this connects into all of them. So this has its stuff stored, and then it doesn't quite reset. Okay, so why is that? Is that because each of these are outputting their clock signals to each other? Yeah, I think it's because each of them are outputting their clock signals to each other. And that's breaking things. Okay, so we need to just clear all the extra stuff out of this. So let's get all that through. So yeah, these guys are constantly flickering, which is wrong. But this one here did get set. So did I forget to paste these settings across in any way? No, I have no idea. I have no idea why these guys are flickering constantly. So we occasionally get something in on red, but it disappears instantly. Alright, no, because this does need to be red or green. Right, so we get all that through. And then we can try this again now, and I think they'll just be cross-contaminated, but maybe not. Okay, so that one is going. Now all of them are uncommon, because one of those got in, but none of these have even seen anything yet. And now we're sending all of that stuff through. Okay, now we're sending epics through, and all of these get set to epic immediately. Alright, this isn't working. However, I feel like this is doable in comparison to the others. I feel like it should be possible in theory to get this to work, but I can't figure it out right now. Alright, let's leave this to next time, I think. So in the meantime, we're up to 25 of those, and these are still stockpiled. Why did the music suddenly just cut off entirely? These have some stuff getting delivered. So this is like almost done, right? So that's good. So these are getting a couple more legendary iron plates, and then they should be just about done creating their little miniature backlogs. So we have that. Then we go over here. We've got 25 of those. How many of these do we have? We have 19 of them, and let's just move those somewhere else. We don't need them in this spot exactly. So you are waiting on productivity module 2s and these. It's always weird when you're waiting on two separate things. How's our beacon supply going? We're up to 7 legendary beacons. That's something, I guess. And I believe we have legendary recyclers over here. We've got 5 of those. Missing legendary concrete. Okay, so things are... I mean, it's happening. It's not going super great. But it looks like... Okay, so it looks like this concrete supply here is actually posing an issue. And that's just because of how fast this ridiculous belt is. So we can't get this concrete out fast enough, which means that this whole system isn't looping fast enough. Okay, so let's see if we just... If we can just find some way of getting that over into here somehow. Like onto the other side of the belt maybe, even though the current side of the belt is barely keeping up. I don't know, it could be worse, right? Like, we are producing holmium plates down here and cycling them through, so that could be worse. Alright, yeah, I think that's all fine. And this is... It's not, like, optimal, but it's pretty manageable for what it is. And then this design down here is very much a work in progress, but it's showing promise, unlike some of the other ones. So, I think we're going to wrap up there for today. My brain is just too tired from staring at this problem over and over to make more progress. But hopefully next time we can crack the code on this one, and I feel like this should be relatively straightforward compared to the other systems. So, yeah, I would say that will be about it for today. I'll be doing Satisfactory tomorrow, where we are starting up a new factory. We are doing, what's it called? The superposition oscillators or something. We finally finished the neural quantum processors the other day. So that should be fun. So if you're interested in that, make sure to stop by then. Otherwise, I'll be back here in Factorio on Wednesday, probably staring at circuit network stuff more. So, make sure to stop by if you're interested. And that's about it. I will see you guys next time. Bye.